History does not belong to us, we belong to it.
History doesn't change the past, but likely it changes the future.
Hi, my name is Elaine.
And my name is Kim.
And we are ready to make history together. Chapter 6, Colonial Society and Politics. Pacification through Education.
The public school system was the main factor of Americanization. The introduction of English as a medium of instruction was a masterstroke of educational policy. The new invasion. Act number 74 create a public school system in Manila with free basic education and a normal school where Filipino teachers would be prepared to take over the educational responsibilities of American military and civilian teachers. 100 young Filipinos were selected for stateside training in the first group. In the United States, more than 200 young men and women had earned university degrees by 1912. They were able to climb the position of authority in colonial society as a result of this initial advantage, which increased their utility to the colonial state. The opening wedge. In 1901, English was designated as a primary language of teaching in public elementary schools. However, Spanish remained the official language in the courts. This demanded a shift in the Filipinos' views towards their new rulers. Military suppression has to be combined with more sophisticated means of subduing the Filipino spirit and luring the mind in order to achieve this goal. This also had the effect of gradually diminishing the passionate nationalist impulses that had fueled the revolution and resistance to American occupation. However, it should be mentioned that the degree of loyalty, mass education, and Americanization was often proportional to income and social standing. Handmaiden colonial fallacy. The imposition of English language in education and governance gave the colonial power a huge advantage because it began to de-Filipinize the youth. Education became miseducation. It instilled in them a series of admiration for American heroes and the belief that American culture is superior to their own. Myths of colonialism. Filipinos had been taught that the United States is a nation of opportunity and fair play by their forefathers. The basis of colonial education was to misrepresent and suppress information about Philippine resistance to American control. The introduction of English as a medium of instruction greatly simplified the flow of information. English became a wedge that helped to further divide the educated from the masses while also separating Filipinos from their past. The result was an influx of millions of Filipinos who became avid consumers of American products and created a fertile ground for American investment. Therefore, it is said that a population that understood English was most useful for rapid economic infiltration. The new intermediaries. The policy of Filipinization of government bureaucracies was characterized as a response to the United States' aim to train Filipinos in self-governance. Filipinos were recruited to act as intermediaries between the United States and the people. This was also due to the fact that employing a large number of Americans in the Philippines would have been prohibitively expensive. The practical consideration of gaining the support of upper and middle-class Filipinos was also taken into account. K6 retained. The reform of local administration by colonial administrator increased the landed elites' grip on their own towns. The debating club. The foundation of the Philippine Assembly was one of the most effective strategies for gaining support from the country's traditional elite. The Americans provided the mechanism of democracy, but they also ensured that the election winners would almost entirely come from the class they were grooming for leadership. 21 of the assemblymen had served in the Spanish administration, 58 in the Malolos government, and 73 of 80 had served in the insular government as provincial or municipal authorities. We can see that the data speak volume about elite deception.
Progress of Filipinization. Under a provision of Jones Law of 1916, the Philippine Commission was Filipinized. In the civil service, Filipinos had only minor position. All executive bureaus were led by Filipinos by 1921. In 1916, the Secretary of Finance and Justice was the only National Executive Office opened to a Filipino. Roots of Philippine politics. The Nacionalista Party was allowed to exist after the ban on pro-independence group was abolished in 1906.
Despite the Americans' assistance, the Federalistas were unpopular among the people.
Caught in the middle.
A new generation of leaders was developed. It's difficult to say that all of these leaders were conscious opportunists and hypocrites in the same way. However, their acceptance of the colonial system contributed to the weakening of the nationalist sentiments. Imperatives of party life. There were no real ideological division among 19th and early 20th century centrist politicians. Affiliation was based on blood ties, friendship, and regional pride as well as personal convenience. Elections were decided on the strength of family alliance and personalities. Dichotomy of public and private views. The official and public opinions of the leader as well as their private position on economic links with the colonial power and independence are at odds.
In light of the facts, the proponent still claims that free trade would bring speedy development to the country.
Pro forma opposition. The leaders of the Philippines at that time were aware of the ramification of free trade and anticipated the result. They couldn't stop it from happening, but they could have warned about the consequences so that people were aware of how unfair it was. Office, not independence. The Americans frequently observe a similar disconnect between politicians' public positions and their private views on the issue of independence. Secret tears. Forbes reaffirmed his former belief that Filipino politicians desired independence as a gimmick to gain votes. Private maneuvers. According to Forbes, Quezon was against a new organic legislation that would have stabilized relations between the Philippines and the United States for at least the next 25 years. At the time when he himself admitted that independence was more than ever his countrymen's aspiration, Quezon's work to postpone it forever. Quezon's real views. The Jones Act guaranteed independence once a stable administration was in place. However, it was only an expression of congressional desire and not a formal agreement.
Rationale of the junkets. Since the first election to the Philippine Assembly in 1907, politics had become a channel of expression of the people's nationalist spirit. This was the time people start to demand for their freedom and have the spirit to fight for their country. But the spirit was being steadily eroded by the process of Americanization. America used education as their primary tool to manipulate people's mind. American education inculcating the concept to every Filipino's mind that Filipino must prove their capacity for self-government before the American government would grant them their independence. Quezon versus Osmeña. Independence became a political football by the two foremost politicians in the country, Sergio Osmeña and Manuel Quezon. In that time, Quezon began to challenge Osmeña's leadership, accusing the latter of exercising personal and autocratic leadership. Because of the fight between Osmeña and Quezon, their party, which is Nacionalista Party, split into Unipersonalistas led by Osmeña and Collectivistas led by Quezon. The first open fight between Osmeña and Quezon also saw the emerge of Recto and Rojas. Reconciliation. After so many fights between Osmeña and Quezon because of the power in politics, they decided to help each other by creating peace between them. But the reconciliation between Osmeña and Quezon had another motivation besides the desire to resolve the leadership question. Their real motive is to confront the threat to their power by the person of Governor General Leonardo Wood. Wood is an instrumental in securing the abolition of the Board of Control, and during the 8 years that Francis Borton Harrison was governor, 1913 to 1921, Wood had been the most accommodating to the Filipino politicians. That's why Osmeña and Quezon see him as a threat. Anti-Americanism. In the controversy between Wood and Nacionalistas, the Democrats had earlier taken the sides of the governor. In the 1923 election, Quezon charged the Democrats of being pro-Americans and cast himself and his party anti-Americans. It was this election that Quezon used the now famous slogan, "I prefer a government run like hell by Filipinos to a government run like heaven by Americans." And despite the people's growing disenchantment to Quezon's leadership because of economic and financial problem, Quezon able to convince Filipinos that the control in our nation must belong to a Filipino. The old refrain, the missioners exposed, and political brokers. On April 1924, Quezon, accompanied by Osmeña and Recto, left to join Rojas in Washington. He went as a leader of the people who had just demonstrated their anti-Americanism and their desire for freedom. But once in the Washington, Quezon and company reverted to their old rules. Both houses of Congress seemed to favor immediate independence, and the sponsor of the bill discussed it in detail with Quezon. The Filipinos suggested some amendments, and Quezon, Osmeña, and Rojas declared that the Fairfield Bill would be acceptable to the Filipinos and would end the constant agitation for independence. But Recto, wishing to capitalize on the popular to boost his own party, and decided to upset their plan. Recto accused Quezon, Osmeña, and Rojas of double-dealing because they claimed that they had worked for the recall of Government General Wood, but the truth is they pledged to cooperate with the general. In this instance, Recto was not attacking Quezon for abandoning the deal of independence, but simply with exposing his political enemies and making political capital out of such exposure for his benefits. Patronage, hedging of independence, and friends of independence. One of the most useful of Recto's perorations against the party in power was the one in which Recto gave a clear picture of the nature of colonial government and of its leader. He exposed the collaboration between the Gobernador General and the majority party. It was not the agitation of Philippine political leaders that was responsible for the establishment of a commonwealth which led to the final grant of independence. In the United States, powerful economic interests worked for Philippine independence to eliminate competition from Philippine product. America gave the freedom to the Philippines, but we can picture out that their motives behind this act is to gain something from our country. Pro and anti, same dog, different color. After Osmeña Rojas' independence mission arrived in Washington in December 1931, Recto, now Quezon's lieutenant, excoriated on the Senate floor this edition deluxe of colonialism, as he called the hair horse cutting bill, that contained many objectionable features like American goods would be allowed free entry into the Philippines. Osmeña and Rojas headed the independence mission the year the hair horse cutting bill was passed, but Quezon was beginning to sense that the triumphant return of the Osrock mission with an Independence Act in its pocket could endanger his leadership. So, in order to minimize their success, Quezon ordered the two leaders to come home before the bill was finally approved. But Rojas and Osmeña knew Quezon's intention, so they ignored his order. When Osmeña and Rojas returned on June 11, 1933, a bitter political conflict ensued which affected their party. The Nacionalistas were divided into antis or anti-hair horse cutting and pros or pro-hair horse cutting. With Quezon in control of the legislature, Osmeña was deposed as president pro tempore of the Senate, and Rojas was replaced as Speaker of the House. This kind of act really shows us that even though you're both Filipino, there's always a tendency you don't share the same goal, to the point that other one will make drastic moves just to benefit himself, and that's what Quezons do. Transition to neo-colonialism. On November 15, 1935, the Philippine Commonwealth was inaugurated. The colony was in transition to becoming a neo-colony. American colonial policy had successfully trained Filipino politicians to be colonial spokesmen. Colonial education had effectively transformed the image of colonizer from conqueror to benefactor. For us, American government used education as their number one tool to manipulate Filipinos' mind.
However,
No amount of miseducation and misinformation can conceal the objective reality of economic exploitation by the Americans.